Hey there, I'm Trey, one of the owners of Cold Blooded Caffeine. Today, I want to talk more about a common question that we get asked as a coffee roaster, and that is the term espresso or espresso blend. First, let's dissect the term espresso. In Italian, espresso means to be expressed or to be pushed out. Essentially, it's a method where coffee is brewed quickly under pressure, where water is forced through a bed of coffee that's called a puck. Modern espresso is usually brewed at a ratio of 1:1 or 1:2 parts coffee to water ratio, which results in a rich flavor, a strong aroma, and of course, that velvety crema that we all love. But here's where things get interesting. We often hear confusion surrounding terms like espresso beans and espresso blends. Are they really different, or is it just a marketing ploy that roasters use to get our attention? Let's explore that a little further. Espresso beans, well, sorry to spoil all the fun, but they're not really some exotic variation. They're your regular coffee beans and can be used with any brew method, not just with an espresso machine. We will talk a little bit more about why they're called out specifically as espresso beans shortly. The same goes for espresso blends. They're versatile and can be used with any brew method, not just confined to the boundaries of an espresso shot. So what's with all the confusion? In many second wave coffee shops, espresso blends often lean towards the dark side, or dark roast that is. But why? Well, as we discussed earlier, espresso is brewed very quickly by forcing water through a bed of coffee, and when you're brewing coffee quickly, the water has less time to contact the grounds, and therefore less time to extract the soluble compounds within the coffee. To counter this, roasters can increase the development time of the roast and make it easier for the water to dissolve those soluble compounds. In short, a longer roast helps with extraction. In addition to that, it tones down the acidity and the sweetness, creating a more universally palatable brew. But here's the twist, and where much of the confusion comes into play. There's no one way to roast for espresso. So in the realm of the specialty coffee world, for instance, espresso can wear many hats, from light and acidic to dark and smoky. So if you find yourself in the maze of espresso choices, how do you navigate it? In chain coffee shops, it's pretty simple. You should just go ahead and expect a darker roast if you're ordering an espresso-based drink. But specialty spots, well, that's a little bit of a different challenge, as each shop will likely have different preferences for how they like to serve espresso. Often, your best course of action if you're truly interested in exploring the world of espresso is to just ask the barista or the roaster what coffee they would use for their espresso. If you're hunting for an espresso blend to make at home, ask your roaster. Seek their expertise and opinion on what they prefer. Going for a regular drip coffee and not something that you intend to make in an espresso machine? Then I recommend asking for a blend or a single origin based on its roast degree and not by a common name such as espresso blend. Specify your preference. Do you like a light roast, a medium dark, a dark roast? And you're more likely to get a coffee that will meet your vision. So to summarize, remember that espresso is a method and not a coffee type. Now that you have a better foundation on what espresso is, let's explore the different components of espresso to help give further background for this incredibly popular brew method. The first thing that you need to know about espresso is grind size. The foundation of a great espresso shot starts with the right grind. Traditional espresso uses a very fine grind to aid in the compression of the grounds and prevent channeling within the puck. However, there is a sweet spot. Too fine and you risk over-extracting, yielding a very bitter shot. Too coarse and under-extraction may leave you with a sour taste. Really, the key is consistency. Now, I said traditional espresso earlier when I was referring to fine grind size because there are some brew baskets that are designed to be used with pre-ground coffee that you can get from a regular retail store, but we highly discourage this method for brewing espresso as the results can be very, very inconsistent and will not bring out the coffee's full potential. It is always best to grind espresso fresh for each brew. Now let's talk about the coffee to water ratio. A classic ratio is 1:2, that is 1 part coffee to 2 parts water. Other drinks very similar to a classic espresso use slightly different ratios, such as a ristretto at 1:1. The main takeaway here is that an espresso drink is a concentrated beverage. The water, better yet the pressure of that water as it goes through the bed of coffee, is also extremely important. The sweet spot for pulling a great shot of espresso is 9 bars. It's the pressure that extracts those aromatic oils and compounds, giving your espresso that delightful crema and that robust flavor profile. To give you a number in perhaps a way that is easier to understand, 9 bars of pressure is approximately 130 psi or pounds per square inch. Now, I just may have said another word that you're not familiar with, crema. The golden crown of espresso. Crema is the layer of brownish gold foam on the top of the espresso liquid after it's brewed. It's not just for aesthetics, though. It actually tells a story of a well-pulled shot. The crema is a delicate emulsion of oils, proteins, and gases, a fingerprint of your brewing finesse. Achieving that perfect crema requires the right balance of grind size, tamping pressure, and extraction time. Speaking of extraction time, a well-pulled shot typically takes around 25 to 30 seconds. This time frame allows for the extraction of desirable flavors without over-extracting and causing bitterness. But, as with many things about coffee, this is both art and science. Experiment, tweak, and find your brew time that works best for you and, more importantly, for the coffee beans that you choose. And that leads me to my final point, which is that all of this tweaking, calculating, trialing, and testing is an ongoing process. Espresso brewing is not a sit-it-and-forget-it coffee-making method. You have to be ready and willing to adjust as needed. Different coffees will cause different results, even in the same equipment. Coffee enthusiasts often refer to this process as dialing in a new coffee, where they start with a standard grind or standard ratio, and then they proceed to try and find out what settings work best for that particular coffee. For the diehard coffee lover, half the fun is the knowledge you gain through experimenting. And there you have it, espresso. If I can leave you with just one last parting thought, it would be this. We as coffee professionals want to make sure that you're served with the coffee that you will find most enjoyable. To do this, I highly encourage you to use roast degree, tasting notes, or other more specific terms instead of phrases like espresso blend, French roast, breakfast blend, etc. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, happy brewing.